Hello, I'm Michelle Makori, and you are watching Kitco News. World War III has already begun, and it is about to get a lot worse. The US will be drawn deeper into the war in Ukraine, and geopolitical conflicts will only ramp up as tensions rise in the Middle East, sending oil to well above $100 per barrel. This will all end with either a nuclear exchange or a major false flag event in 2023, which will greatly benefit safe haven assets like gold. And on the domestic front, governments will increase their grip over their citizens through central bank digital currencies or CBDCs, which can be used to crack down on political dissidents. However, the state will be unable to stop growing populist discontent over issues like war, immigration, and economic malaise, giving rise to new political movements. And this will all happen against a backdrop of growing artificial intelligence and automation, which could leave millions of blue and white-collar professionals out of a job. Well, all of these dark and very dire predictions for 2023 are from my next guest, Gerald Celente, the publisher of the Trends Journal and the founder and director of the Trends Research Institute. And Gerald has a 40-year track record of forecasting and identifying trends. His many accurate forecasts include the 1987 stock market crash, the dot-com bust, the gold bull run, the rise of organic foods, and even the popularity of gourmet coffee long before Starbucks was a household name. Gerald, welcome back to Kitco.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle.
Gerald, I'm going to need a very strong cup of coffee to get through this very, very sobering interview. We're going to break down the trends that you're forecasting for 2023 and also, of course, discuss what this means for investors. And look, this is a very, very grim forecast that you have. Your number 2 trend for 2023 is market meltdown and economic calamity, which you did in fact caution us when you were on the show last would begin in 2022 and escalate into 2023. And as dire as that is, we have to first focus on your even more distressing forecast. And your top trend for 2023 is World War III. You're saying we're going from COVID war to Ukraine war to World War. Explain that.
Yeah, well, the COVID war changed life. The damage that it's done to billions of people around the planet is incalculable. The businesses that have gone out of business, the lives and livelihoods have been destroyed, and a whole different culture. Wearing masks now is part of the Western way, particularly the American way. And the Ukraine war just keeps ramping it up as governments continue to take more and more control and dictate to the people. I mean, here we are in the United States. By the way, I had so you know where I'm coming from. I had a peace rally back in July of 2023.
2022.
2022, excuse me. And I had Judge Andrew Napolitano, Scott Ritter, Gary Null, Phil Giraldi, top former CIA guy that goes into George W. Bush's office. This is a fact. Shows them the data. There are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And you know what George E. Bush told Phil Giraldi, the top CIA guy? Get out of the office. And Phil Giraldi quit. So when I talk about these issues and these trends, I'm using information and data that's factual and to see where we're going. So now let's go back to the demise of America's 20-year war in Afghanistan, where Biden pulls out the troops and it's a terrible, terrible scene. And the public is really disgusted with it. Then all of a sudden, the Ukraine war, everybody forgot about that. Now we're going to help fight the Ukraine to defeat the Russians. This is not a proxy war. America is at war with Russia. They're sending in Ukrainian troops to give them the skills to use the weapons that we're giving them. By the way, since February 24th, 2022, America has sent over $1 billion to Ukraine in weapons and quote aid. So now we're bringing troops over here to America to train them on how to use these weapons. Number two, the Defense Secretary of the United States, Lloyd Austin, former general, now a defense secretary. Oh, no, I forgot. His job before that was sitting on the board of directors of Raytheon, the second largest defense contractor in America. He announced that we are sending, quote, advisors into Ukraine to show them how to use the weapons that America is sending them there. So it's called mission creep. And that's what they're doing. So America is at war, and NATO is at war with Russia. They are already pumping this thing that if a nuclear bomb goes off, here's 3 steps to take. They're running ads in New York City. When I was a kid, I just turned 76. They used to have us hiding under desks, scared out of our lives that if the Russians are going to drop an atom bomb. Oh, that's going to really save your life. You're under a desk and an atom bomb goes off, just like the 3 steps they're taking you. Go into your house, stand in the middle of the room, and take a shower. What are you kidding? You're dust. This is the stupidity. But here's what the Americans know. Hey, did you hear about that football player that got a heart attack? Oh, my God. This only went on for what, a week and a half? Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I hope they're back. This is a stupidity. Oh, and the breaking news that Jill Biden has to get some surgery over her eye. Top Yahoo News story. So what I'm saying is that people don't have a clue of what's going on, the dangers behind it, and the implications.
I hear that. And this is why we have you to help them get a clue. And I hear you on this being perhaps a proxy war between the US and Russia. The Biden administration just last year gave nearly $50 billion in assistance to Ukraine, including humanitarian, financial, and of course, military support. And as you just highlighted, President Biden said there would be no US boots on the ground in Ukraine, but the Pentagon has in fact confirmed the deployment of active duty military personnel in Ukraine. They're claiming that no US forces are conducting combat operations in Ukraine, but you have personnel there that are assigned to conduct security cooperation and assistance as part of the Defense Attaché Office. So you have US personnel resuming on-site inspections to assess the weapon stock in Ukraine. I hear you on this being a proxy in many ways. I hear you on this being an escalation. But let's get to how you see this really becoming nuclear Armageddon. By the way, you're quite right. In New York, we have been seeing public service announcements of what to do in the event of a nuclear war, which of course is pretty distressing. Not nearly as distressing, though, as what you write in your journal. And in the 2023 Trends Journal, you write, World War III will be the US, NATO, and its allies versus China, Russia, and its allies. And the winner will be climate change. The climate will change into the 2,000-year new ice age when a nuclear war destroys life on this planet. This sounds apocalyptic. That is the only word for it, apocalyptic. Gerald, do you really think we're going to get a nuclear war in 2023?
Let's look at the imbeciles and morons running the show. I just told you I turned 76 years old. The year before I was born, it was the end of World War II, not ancient history. Maniacs destroyed Europe. Crazy people. Oh, and before that one, World War I. I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy, Yankee Doodle Do or Die. Let's go throughout history. What's your favorite war? I like the 100-Year War. Now, the War of Roses was so beautiful. You got crazy people in charge. Look at the clown show. How can anybody with a brain bigger than a pea look up to a Mitch McConnell, a little Chucky Schumer, Lindsey Graham, all these tough guys that couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag that love war. They're mentally deranged. Hey, what's your favorite war? I told you about the Iraq War, how little Georgie Bush a daddy's boy born on third base and thought he had a home run, lied us into the war. The facts were there. Never any weapons of mass destruction. Oh, and we're going to get that guy, Osama bin Laden, dead or alive up there in Afghanistan. That's a quote. And 88% of the American people swallowed it.
Okay, that was then. Some very colorful comments that you've made about past and current leaders. And again, the competency of the current administration does, many would say, leave much to be desired. But what do you think will actually trigger this nuclear exchange? Who would shoot the first round? What would be attacked? Do you have more of a synopsis of how this actually happens?
No, you don't. You can't. Here's this guy, Sean Penn, just came out with this thing that Ukraine is winning the war. What am I, 6 years old? Russia took over 20% of the country. Depending on the reports you're reading, 70% of Ukraine's power and water infrastructure have been destroyed. So now Ukraine is going down. They're going to do anything they can to get more support. So they may attack one of the nuclear plants. You don't know. And again, a false flag event. Again, my age when I'm growing up, those dirty Vietnamese, they attacked an American ship in the Gulf of Tonkin. Total lie by another guy, may he rot in hell, Robert McNamara, that started the Vietnam War. Never happened. Oh, and by the way, what's the United States doing in the Gulf of Tonkin? How about if the Vietnamese were in the Gulf of Mexico? Would you like that? So what I'm saying to you, it's war after war is lies after lies. You got maniacs in charge.
So you think that it's actually going to be Ukraine that escalates it? The concern has been, and again, based off what we're hearing via the mainstream media, but the concern has been that the war has not been going as President Putin would like it to go, and that he is going to be backed into a corner and into a move of desperation. But from what I'm hearing, you're thinking that Ukraine is going to up the ante.
Absolutely. And the United States. And again, you're not going to, I'm totally opposed to the war. I want to make this 100%
That is very clear. That is very clear.
And I launched Occupy Peace movement back in 2014. So I'm totally opposed to war. But I totally understand why it happened. This is your Trends Journal from spring, when it used to be a quarterly, now it's a weekly. 2014, the United States coup of the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych, written by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan. Washington is driving the world to the final war. It's all about the United States coup of Ukraine government. This has been going on forever. Hey, once upon a time, there was a guy by the name of Dwight D. Eisenhower, 5-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces, 2-term president. Farewell address, January 17th, 1961. The military-industrial complex is robbing the nation of the genius of the scientists, the sweat of the laborers, and the future of the children. He goes on to say that after every war before, there was no military-industrial complex. Those that were making plows started making armaments for the military, and then it went back to making plows. It's a total takeover, and all you have to do, again, is look at who the guy that's playing our Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, formerly sitting on the board of directors of Raytheon, the second largest defense contractor in the United States.
And Raytheon shares have done very well lately, but I still find it hard to imagine that would be an agenda to cause a nuclear war. Gerald, go on.
Things get out of control. And by the way, this is very important. We're talking about one of our other trends. We're talking about market meltdown.
Yeah.
The only thing that's keeping the markets up are interest rates. They go higher, market goes down. When all else fails, they take you to war. There was a thing called the Great Depression. Oh, what followed it? World War II. Oh, remember the dot-com bust? Oh, yeah, we forecasted in our October 1999 Trends Journal, said it would happen by the second quarter of 2000. Oh, you mean that the NASDAQ crashed just before 9/11? That we were going into a recession, the dot-com bust? But people forgot it after 9/11.
I don't know that I want to veer off into that conspiracy theory, but are you suggesting
Not a
that
conspiracy
9/11
theory.
was by design? Are you suggesting
No,
that 9/11?
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when war begins, people forget about the economic calamity.
Fair. Well, that is fair. That point is fair. But what would you put the percentage of a diplomatic off-ramp for the Russia-Ukraine crisis at?
It depends on the United States and NATO. Over and over again, Russia said that they're not going to give up this territory. Again, this thing has been going on for some 300 years, a border dispute. They're taking down the statue of Catherine the Great. Oh, wasn't she great? In 1750? Oh, you mean, but she created Odessa? Oh, they hate her? This has been going on over and over and over. This is an issue between these two countries that they have to solve. This is not, again, I, Gerald Celente, am an American. A Napolitano, born in the Bronx, born to be free, and I believe in the founding fathers, like George Washington. No foreign entanglements, particularly in Europe, because this stuff has been going on for centuries. John Quincy Adams, America does not go abroad to fight the demons. Oh, no. I'm Bill Clinton, Georgie Bush, Barack Obama, and Biden. Can't fight my way out of a paper bag, never been in a battle, but we're going to go to war.
Gerald, again, some very sobering anecdotes that you mentioned there, but the likelihood of a nuclear war in 2023, and yes, I can see an escalation happening. And yes, granted, people have been saying that this is probably the time where a nuclear war is at its highest probability than ever before. How seriously, though, are you personally taking that? Are you prepared? Do you have a bunker, for example?
What bunker? You think I'd want to live after a nuclear explosion? I mean, life would be hell. Here, this is from Business Insider. A nuclear attack would most likely target one of these 6 cities. All right? So they're saying it. They're saying it. They're putting it into people's mind. Will it happen? I hope not. But what I'm saying is the war is going to continue to escalate unless we talk about peace. And you were talking before about the mainstream media saying that, the Russians are losing the war. Oh, there's the same mainstream media that stole the Iraq war. Go to Fairness and Accuracy Reporting and see how many people they allowed on the mainstream media when the Iraq war was going on that said we shouldn't be in it and we should have peace. I think it was like 2%. So all they do, the New York Times, the paper of record, yeah, they're the ones that sold the lie that Saddam Hussein was getting these uranium tubes. There was obvious evidence that he was making nuclear weapons. So why would I listen to the prostitutes that put out this stuff? So again, do I want a nuclear? Do I believe it? I'm saying it could escalate into it. And you're talking about they're running ads on TV. Business Insider is writing articles on it. So that's what I'm saying.
Look, it could escalate. Hopefully not. And as I've said, many think tanks have said that 2023 is providing the highest likelihood of a nuclear war since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Trend 8 in your forecast is the Middle East meltdown. I do want to get to that because it's all linked to this, of course, with Iran being a Russian ally and that it's been supplying Moscow with kamikaze drones. But before we get into that, again, of course, if there's a nuclear war, this is all pretty academic. But before we get into that, let's focus on the economy, the market meltdown and economic calamity, which is your big trend number 2. Now, Gerald, when we chatted about a year ago, you correctly forecast that the Fed would hike rates quite aggressively. And the Fed has indeed raised rates 7 times in 2022 to a total of 425 basis points. indicating that more increases are likely on the way. Just on Tuesday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell was saying, and I'm quoting him here, price stability is the bedrock of a healthy economy, and restoring price stability when inflation is high can require measures that are not popular in the short term as we raise interest rates to slow the economy. So, acknowledgement that they're slowing the economy. What do you expect regarding the US economy for 2023?
It depends on what they do with interest rates. And I don't believe a word that they say. And the reason I don't believe a word that Powell or Yellen yells out is by their deeds you shall know them. So let's go back to 2021 as inflation is skyrocketing, and they come out with all the arrogance that, no, this isn't inflation. It's only temporary.
Right.
And as inflation keeps going and going, well, no, it's not temporary, but it's transitory. And not only in the United States, over there in the EU as well, with Lagarde saying this isn't real, it's going to go away. So what they've raised rates compared to inflation, and then when you look at John Williams' shadow stats, the inflation number is actually double this, not 7%, but more like 15%, because they take out things, the home prices, they went up 40% over 2 years. No, we're going to put them in there. No, we're going to make up a new thing. We put rentals in there and other things. Oh, and you're not eating steak anymore, so that didn't go up. You're eating chopped meat. So the numbers are rigged. So going back to what are they going to do? And you can't believe anything that they're saying, as I see it, because of the lies or ignorance that they've said before. Number two, they're not blaming. They're coming out and saying that inflation is caused by the supply chain disruptions. And you know what else? Rising wages. So now what we're going to do is slow down the economy so wages go down.
Mm-hmm.
From Wall Street Journal, January 7th, Dow jumps 700 points on signs of moderating wage gains. Isn't that nice? Quote, investors are celebrating the fact that the average hourly earnings number was less than expected, says Michael Arone, chief investment strategist of State Street Global Advisors. Quote, there was fear going in that wage inflation would remain high. Oh, you mean the plantation workers of Slavelandia were going to make more money? No. That's not what's causing inflation, but they're happy that they're not making money. What caused the inflation was negative interest rates, the United States government dumping in over $6 trillion of fake money to artificially prop up the economy during the COVID war, bringing the interest rates down to nothing. So you had the housing boom and merger and acquisition activity in 2021 hit an all-time high. So going back to where it's going, it depends on what they do with interest rates. If they raise interest rates 50 basis points on February 1st, the markets are going to go down really big and hard. That's the way I forecast it. Long term, before the 2024 elections, they're going to lower interest rates. They do it all the time for the party in power.
Right. Well, the market is looking at a 25 basis point hike at the next Fed meeting. What would you think the market reaction would be to that?
Positive.
But
yep.
But overall, you're expecting a market meltdown, as you say, for 2023. Now, the S&P 500 is down around 16% year over year. How much more of a percentage decline do you expect for the S&P 500?
Again, we're forecasting a market meltdown if they continue to do what they're saying they're going to do.
Right.
We can't predict what they're going to do. For example, in 2012, I thought the markets were going to crash. They didn't teach me about zero interest rate policy and a thing called quantitative easing in Economics 101 or graduate school. They'll make up anything. So we don't know what they're going to make up. If they stay the course to what they're saying, then we see a market meltdown. But even overall, if they raise interest rates only 25 basis points, it's still going to have a lot of negative effect on the rest of the economy. The markets will do okay, but the rest of the economy won't. Again, you're looking at the headlines over how happy they are that the people are earning less wages.
If they mean what they say they're going to do, then you anticipate this market meltdown. But as you quite correctly pointed out, they very rarely do what they say that they're going to do, given that they've said, as you quite rightly pointed out, inflation is temporary, nothing to see here, don't worry about it, then it's only transitory. And so the expectation is that despite all this tough talk, the Fed will in fact either pivot or at the very least pause. I'm sensing that if that happens, your market meltdown scenario is then not going to happen.
Exactly.
Okay. And the likelihood of the Fed pausing and then perhaps even pivoting, you say, is increased because we've got elections coming up and they're going to try to do their best. Yeah.
Next year, later in the year, that not now, but, early 2024. They do it all the time. Oh, by the way, people forget this. Go back to 2018, December. There was no Santa Claus rally. The markets were really diving. Terrible December 2018. Donald Trump, on and on and on, outwardly, kept pushing Powell to lower interest rates. What did Powell do in January? He announced that they were going to lower interest rates. They did. They artificially propped up the market. Oh, and then what happened in 2019? Forgot all about it. Oh, the thing called the repo markets, and the Federal Reserve dumped in $7 trillion from September 2019 to January 2020 to artificially prop them up again. The whole game is a rigged game.
Well, then I guess the question is, what is an investor to do? And last time we spoke, I know you make it quite clear that you don't give investment advice per se, but you do say GSB, or at least that's what you said last time: gold, silver, Bitcoin.
Yep. And I stick by it. Yep. And again, so Bitcoin, Bitcoin's way down, but I mean, considering where it started from 11 years ago, it's at 17,000 now. It's been stuck in that range. And gold to me is number one. Look, you just saw what happened in 2022 with the central banks gobbling this stuff up like crazy. They know what's going on. So again, it's to me, gold is the number one safe haven asset. And again, if World War III continues to escalate, and then you're going to start seeing that we talked about, we didn't get to it yet, but the Middle East meltdown with the United States and Israel now putting more and more focus on bringing down Iran in any way that they can, you see oil prices starting to skyrocket again. You're going to see a meltdown. Look what's going on in Europe with the energy prices and how it's hurting the people. They say this is good news. This is how they put the news. Inflation declined in Europe. Oh, it was down to like 9.7% from 10 point something. What are you kidding me? Oh, and most of it went down because of low energy prices, but all the other things are going way up. So we have an inflation floor that just keeps getting higher and higher. So if the wars escalate, oil prices go up, it will be that will be what ignites the crash. Higher oil prices.
We will get back to that Middle East meltdown in more detail, but let's focus a little bit more on gold. In our interview last year, you correctly said that initially gold and silver would drop as the Fed starts to raise rate to 1.5% and above, and would only start to rally much later. Gold is up, 2.9% year over year. Most of it gained this year, 2.7% year to date. You said in your January 10th Trends Journal forecast that gold prices have hit their bottom. Currently, gold is at around 1,880. Let's say 1,800. Are you ready to call 1,800 as a bottom for gold?
I would say, I'd say 1,800 is a pretty good bottom. 1,800, 1,750. Absolutely. We don't see it going down deep. And this could be the year. This can be the year when gold really, really takes off to a much higher extent, well over 2,000. It could even go into the 2,500 numbers.
That's your upside target for gold for 2023, 25.
Yeah, it could definitely happen. If again, we can't. People used to call me a futurist. I'm not a futurist. There are too many wild cards, whether they're man-made or made by humans. You only could do the trends where you see what the current events are that are forming the future trends. So if the current events that are forming future trends continue to escalate into war in Ukraine, you can see, and the Middle East, yes, gold goes through the roof. Oh, and by the way, I talked about a false flag event. Let's go back a couple of months ago. All of a sudden, Russian missile hits Poland, 2 dead. Dun, 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 NATO's going to unite. Remember that?
Well, yeah, then it turned out there was a Ukrainian missile.
Yeah, but you see how it popped it all up?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that they do. And so that's what we're saying, a false flag or a real event. So the people will do it immediately. So again, to me, gold, as I say, GC's 3Gs, Gerald Celente's 3Gs, guns, gold, and a getaway plan. But anyway, anything can happen. And to me, gold is the number one safe haven asset.
I'm going to need to get details on that getaway plan off the air, by the way, Gerald. So again, gold, if it rises, it means that things are not really going well, depending on how dramatically it rises. We've had a lot of guests on this show saying, if gold gets to like 5,000, it means all hell has broken loose and you don't really want that. What would you say is your 5-year gold forecast, assuming nuclear Armageddon is averted here?
Nuclear Armageddon, I could care less what it does.
Sure. I mean, exactly.
I don't know. But the person who said $5,000 and coming to that, it would be terrible. I agree. Again, I'm pushing for peace.
That is very clear. Very, very clear.
And by the way, peace is prohibited. You're not allowed to talk about peace. It's not talked about at all in the media. And when you talked about peace, it's all they talk about is no, 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 we're going to do more and more and more. So to me, that the gentleman or woman who said that gold at $5,000 an ounce, you're not even going to want to own it, I agree.
All right, Gerald. So let's hear what your outlook is then for the global economy for 2023.
It's down. I mean, you're looking at the emerging markets. They're submerging really deeply. They have all this debt. A lot of it's dollar-based. And the dollar is still much stronger than it was before. And they're going to go down really hard. And again, the damage done by the COVID war is incalculable. Look, one of our top trends is office building bust. You're looking at office occupancy rate, and you could go to the data, look it up, Castle, any of them. At best, it's 50% of what it was before the COVID war when it launched in China on Chinese Lunar New Year, 2020, the year of the rat. All the businesses that depended on commuters, they're going out of business. All of the office space, the occupancy rates, they're hitting new highs. So now you are an owner of an office building. I'm not going to take 15 floors anymore, somebody says, because I have people working remote, even though they're only coming in 2 days a week. I'm going to save myself money. And I'm the landlord. I own this building and I got to pay my mortgage. Oh, and interest rates went up and you got variable rate mortgage on this? And now you're looking globally. You're looking in Europe at a 46% office occupancy rate. Places like London, 35%. All the businesses that depended on it. I'm telling you, the damage that has been done by the COVID war, not only financially, but spiritually, emotionally, physically. Again, we write it in the magazine. Kids are going out of their minds from what happened with the lockdowns. Drug dealers, crime, one thing after another. So what we're saying is the economic situation is only artificially being covered up by the markets. When the markets go down, then the rest of the people in the economy know how bad it is. Every week we do the unemployment numbers, the people leaving jobs. one company after another, firing. Goldman Sachs just fired how many? Amazon just let go of how many? This one let go of how many? When did you ever see this? Day after day after day after day after day. Oh, and then the new numbers came out. Oh, they weren't that bad. We had, oh yeah, you mean the jobs that the people were taking, the numbers that went up? People were taking second jobs and third jobs that pay very low wages because 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
So you're saying that the disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street is even worse than what we think it is?
Absolutely. And when Wall Street goes down, then it becomes the reality. That's the reality on the street doesn't count. It's only when Wall Street goes down. Oh, it's like a football player got a heart attack. Well, my mother died of a heart attack. Nobody cared. Oh, but that was a football player. You see what I'm telling you? They ramp it up. They only make important things, what they think is important, to keep the people's mind on it. So as long as the equity markets stay high, the people look. You're in New York. According to some of the data coming out, the average rents in New York City range between $4,000 and $5,000 a month.
Well, I don't know about that exact figure, but I can attest to the fact that rents have been going up. Certainly has been the case for myself.
And again, that's the data that they put out there that I'm repeating. And then what you look at the median household income, what is it, 60 something, $70,000? So you're going to see a big crash, car sales going down, one thing after another. Look at all the stores closing down. It's in front of everybody's eyes. The layoffs, the layoffs, the layoffs, the layoffs. Again, it was artificially propped up by the bankster bandits in the government.
So what is an investor to do? I know you don't give financial advice. How are you positioning yourself, though?
Again, for me, I have real estate and gold. And there are going to still be real estate opportunities. And gold, again, gold to me is my first buy of gold, by the way, was at $187.50 an ounce back in the late 1970s. That's when I started becoming a trend forecaster. The Iran war was breaking out, the overthrow of the Shah. And again, just like they taught us to hate Russia, they taught us to hate Iran. The average person didn't know about the United States overthrow the democratically elected government of Mossadegh in 1953 because he wanted to nationalize the Iranian oil. And anyway, and the CIA and the MI6 overthrew him, and Standard Oil and today BP, Anglo-Iranian Oil, took over again. Anglo-Iranian, that's what they called it. Anyway, that was BP. Became BP. So I said to myself, as everybody's hating all this, what will be the implications? And I started playing the futures markets, and I started betting on gold and oil futures because I knew this thing was going to happen, and they weren't going to defeat the people taking to the streets because millions and millions were taking to the streets. And that's how I became a trend forecaster. I started looking at things for the way they are, not the way I wanted them to be or what the government told me they were. And I feel the same thing right now, that we're in that same position, gold and oil, because there's war breaking out. This is a real war. It's not a proxy war, by the way. America is at war.
Right.
If I said, hey, listen, Michelle, give me a gun and a grenade. I want to go blow this guy's brains out. And you gave me the guns and the grenade and I blew his brains out. You're an accessory to the crime.
Okay, gold and oil. Again, last year your advice
and Bitcoin and silver.
Bitcoin and silver. Let's talk about Bitcoin, because last year you said it was also going to initially take a hit. It's down 60% year over year. Of course, the collapse of FTX not helping matters. When we spoke last, Bitcoin was around 49,000. You said you expect to drop, and if it drops below 30, 35, then it could really drop. Bitcoin recently trending upwards, well, after a huge downtrend, but trending upwards, crossed 17,000 resistance line at about 17,500. Do you have a Bitcoin outlook?
Yeah, again, I don't know exactly what will happen, But to me, it's solidifying again because it stayed in that $16,000 range for months after months after months. And again, considering where it started from and where it is, one of our top trends also is AI. We owe you, artificial intelligence. This is a digital world,
Right.
And this is a part of a culture. They really believe in this. They really invest in it. It's part of them, and I don't see it going away until one of our other trends is from dirty cash to digital trash. The governments are going to go digital. They're going to go digital to cover up the fallacy that they created with all of this cheap money and this huge debt.
Well, so your trend is for dirty cash to digital trash, and you're saying that governments will move further to along the road of central bank digital currencies. What does that mean for Bitcoin before we unpack the whole CBDC conversation?
That's what I mean. Something like that could bring it down because when the governments go fully digital, they're not going to allow any competition.
So at that point, you're no longer a believer in Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's when I would say, it's a different game now. Again, look what they did in China. They banned it. You can't do it. It's over. So they'll do the same.
Some make the opposite argument that Bitcoin will be an alternative to CBDCs. That's the whole point of Bitcoin, is to be able to fight against this kind of tyranny of fiat currencies now going digital.
With the government taking more and more control on the AI world, they will do all they can to destroy anything that they don't want. Bitcoin
included.
Bitcoin, you and me, anybody.
Okay, well, very tyrannical forecast there. Let's talk about CBDCs and your expectations for 2023. We know that more than 100 countries are exploring CBDCs. That's according to the Atlantic Council's Central Bank Digital Currency Tracker. As you quite rightly pointed out, China has been leading the way with the digital yuan. And in fact, just today, the People's Bank of China has for the first time included its central bank digital currency, the digital yuan, in its official cash reports for the month of December. So it's allowing the digital yuan to now be counted as part of the money in circulation. And it's also allowing the digital yuan trial to expand into the world of wealth management. We've got the Hong Kong Stock Exchange listed brokerage and investment bank China Galaxy Securities announcing that it will now allow digital yuan paying customers access to over-the-counter wealth management products. So a big trend, China's leading the way, taking even bigger steps. Among the G20 countries, 19 are exploring a CBDC, 16 already in the development or pilot stage. What do we expect for 2023 with CBDCs?
Continuing. Again, all of them are going to go digital. They're going to use this as an excuse to come up with a new currency. And the bottom line is that they have all this debt and they got to wash it out with a new currency. And number two, and most importantly, with a digital currency, they know every penny that you spent, where you spent it, what you spent it on. So they even have more and more control over you. But most importantly, they get every penny from you in tax dollars because these politicians don't work. All they do is have a lifetime job of playing politics. They don't have real jobs. And all the bureaucrats that they have, all their buddies, all their friends, all the things they create, they want to keep that going. So now when they could get all your tax dollars, that's all they are interested in. And by the way, when the COVID and you had all these governors and everybody telling you lock down, close down, close down. Did you see any of the politicians? They were taking pay cuts. No.
Right.
So all they want by the way, it's part of my career. I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate at 26 years old. This is the guy that ran the whole show. Show you a picture of me and Ronald Reagan when I picked him up to Chicago Hilton in 1976, 2 days before he's announcing he's running against Gerald Ford when I was 30 years old. I've been with presidents, prime ministers, and princes. I was on the other side. I know what it looks like. The people that are politicians, nobody could believe when I quit the Senate. I said, I'm not going to do this. I watch grown men grovel to suck their way up to the top. The people out of the politicians are the people I hated in high school and college that want to become class president. This is a low-life bunch of people that are running the show. And all they want to do is keep getting our money so they don't have to work, bottom line. And they're going to do it with digital.
Let's be hopeful and optimistic that not all politicians are bad, but I get what you're trying to say. I'm going to be optimistic and say that there are probably hopefully some good ones in the batch there. But this idea of a central bank digital currency, as you quite rightly say, the government will be able to monitor every single transaction that you make. That's the end of privacy. That's the end of anonymity. And more so, these digital tokens may be programmable. So, for example, if the government doesn't like you spending money on a certain thing, let's call it a plane ticket, because you've exceeded your carbon output for the year, they could, in theory, program the currency that it will not work for you, Gerald, to buy your 10th air ticket this month, or that you would be able to buy it, but with a higher premium, for example. So central bank digital currencies, incredibly dangerous. And of course, we saw an example of government overreach in Canada. Democratic Canada, where the Trudeau administration banned transactions for the bank accounts of the truckers that were protesting against the vaccines. Is this inevitable, though? You do have this as a big threat to traditional finance in many ways. Is there any way the CBDC trend can be prevented?
Only if the politicians prevent it. Again, there are some good politicians. But again, the whole situation, like you just taught your Joe. I mentioned George Bush, right? Little Georgie Bush, a little daddy's boy, born on third base and thought he had a home run. They're the most arrogant, like that little boy Trudeau over there, a little daddy's boy, arrogant, stealing the people's money. As you said, you know, what they did with the truckers. They'll do anything. Again, go back to 1933. I'm Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Turn in all your gold. I mean, you know, they'll do anything. Again, I don't call it a government, by the way. I call it a crime syndicate. And by their deeds you shall know them. They're murderers and thieves. They all these wars they start. Again, and thieves, hey, I'm Jamie Dimon. I'm Goldman Sachs. I'm this one. I'm that one. I'm too big to fail. Oh, we're only going to give you $29 trillion. The Federal Reserve pumped in from 2007 to 2010, according to the Levy Institute of Bard College. I mean, I'm not too big to fail. You know, you're nothing. You're not a bankster. Again, to me, it's a crime syndicate that people call a government. And I'm a guy that was there. And I could keep going on.
Right. Well, Gerald, you certainly do not hold back. That's why we like to hear from you. You're very, very vocal with expressing your opinions. Let's move on to this idea of the Middle East. And by the way, Iran launched a pilot for its CBDC or digital real scheme in, I believe, September of last year in partnership with two local banks. It's one of the front runners in the region. Part of the appeal for Iran is that it wants to reduce dependency on the dollar and to skirt US sanctions. And of course, one of the issues with CBDCs is the impact that it will have on any kind of political uprising, because the government will be able to really throttle dissidents with a programmable currency. And as we know, Iran has been facing a lot of protests against the government there. Iran, also a Russian ally, been supplying Moscow with those kamikaze drones used to attack civilians in Ukraine, brings us back into the World War III discussion. And you say that a hot war could erupt between Israel and Iran. Iran has threatened to wipe Israel off the map. Israel has said, no way we're going to let that happen. And Iran is believed to be closer than ever to weapons-grade uranium. Intelligence shows that it's been developing its nuclear program even during the Obama deal, or JCPOA, and certainly accelerating it now with apparently being able to enrich uranium to nearly 90%, which is military grade. So what happens here? How do you see this playing out?
Look at the new government that just came in and read the headlines from the mainstream media. They call the new government a right-wing government.
You mean the Israeli government?
The new Israeli government.
Yeah.
And then you talk about Iranians supplying Russia with drones. How dare the Iranians supply Russia with drones when It's okay for NATO and the United States to supply Ukraine with weapons. That's okay. But you can't do it the other way. You have to believe what we're saying. There are two sides to his story, but you're only allowed one. And again, with the Israeli issue, there's the Palestinian issue, and the new government, by the way, has announced that they're going to take more and more Palestinian land. They're banning the flying of the Palestinian flag, calling it an act of terrorism. And the new government, united with the United States and our Secretary of State Blinken, are talking more and more about uniting against Iran. And Iran, yes, they're developing more nuclear energy, because what happened? Who was the person that took Iran off the deal, the nuclear deal? It was Donald Trump. They weren't making any nuclear, and Donald Trump took them off, and Biden said he would renew it, and he didn't renew the nuclear deal.
Gerald, I'm going to have to push back on that one, because it was serious intelligence showing that Iran was in clear violation of the Obama nuclear deal.
I totally disagree with you. I totally disagree.
And there was tremendous concern that it was in fact only fast tracking Iran's path to a nuclear weapon. So and that they certainly weren't abiding by
That's not the
policies.
information that I've seen and wrote in the magazine from international sources. It may be the American version was that, but not the international. The advisors were going in there and saying what they were doing here and here and there. It was Donald Trump that took us off. And again, he was also the one that took the capital, moving it from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Yes, agreed. Those were in fact
they kept escalating.
Those were in fact Donald Trump's policies. He did pull the U.S. Out of the Iran nuclear deal. And again, there was a tremendous intelligence, largely from the Mossad as well as other agencies, showing that it wasn't in fact working. But nonetheless, we are where we are right now. We have this very tense situation. If Israel, either in cooperation with the U.S. or on its own, it may go solo on this one, feels that it needs to take action against Iran, which it sees as an existential threat. What happens then? What does this mean for oil prices?
It just keeps escalating World War III. Oh, and by the way, again, this is the data that Israel is, they just bombed the Damascus airport last week, and they've admitted to doing over 400 strikes in Syria, because the Iranians are there and they're helping the Assad government. So this thing there's many sides to it, and it just keeps escalating. And again, as I said before, when all else fails, they take you to war. And people forget about all the economic details, all the other problems, and they're flying the war flag. And that's my greatest concern.
So what happens in that event? If there is a Middle East meltdown, as you say.
It escalates. The Middle East meltdown, you're going to see oil prices skyrocket to new highs. It'll crash the global economy. When oil prices go up about over $130 a barrel, it's over. It's finished. You already have again, they're talking about all the alternative energies coming in Europe. You look at the number, it's tiny compared to what they need. Oh, and by the way, what is coal use now? It just hit I think it's the highest level since 1999 or something like that. So they need this stuff. And without the energy, without oil, you're going to see inflation hit highs that are unimaginable, particularly in Europe.
So you saying you could see oil over $130 a barrel
Absolutely.
In 2023 if this Middle East crisis escalates?
Continues. Yep. And you're seeing oil prices going up again. They're going down now. They're going back up. They're going back up. Because the tensions are heating up and the players know it.
Okay, I'm trying to find a positive trend in your forecast for 2023. Initially, we like to think of technology and progress as perhaps helping to counter inflation. That's usually how sometimes these things work, with technology providing solutions. On the contrary, you're saying that one of the more disturbing trends that we're going to see is the rise of artificial intelligence. We're already seeing apps like ChatGPT, which can write programming code, write some AI, even creating, there was this thing with the actor Ryan Reynolds. He put out this little video showing how he asked ChatGPT to put together an ad for Mint Mobile, and it did a disturbingly good job. So we've got AI threatening white-collar jobs, including lawyers, artists, copywriters, of course, stock traders, but we also have automation threatening blue-collar jobs.
Yep.
How bad does this get then, in terms of what you see regarding unemployment, widespread unemployment?
Well, it's going to increase it. You know, in the King James Bible, they say that the meek shall inherit the earth. They misspelt it. The geeks have inherited the earth. And I mean, you know, you have my place where I'm at now. You have no idea what it looks like. I have over 200 plants in here. The place is beautiful. I have art everywhere. And I'm a real fan of the old jazz, you know, the Duke Ellingtons, Louis Armstrongs, Billie Holidays, all that stuff. And I really love the old music. And it was the heart and soul of America. It was its greatest export. Matter of fact, they used to call Louis Armstrong the ambassador of goodwill. He was going behind the Iron Curtain, all of that during the 1950s, you know, and it was the American music. And now it's turned digital and one bad rap. And that's what it's all become. It's all become that. And again, you look at the data, and I'm not making this stuff up, about the damage that it's doing psychologically to children that are being so addicted to this stuff, on and on and on and on. So unless you asked me about what I would love to see, and I would love to see a renaissance, going back to what life used to be when people were people and hearts felt like hearts rather than they were simulated. And there, once upon a time, there was a thing called the Black Plague, and some 60% of Europe was eliminated. So now we had the COVID war plague, right? What followed the Black Plague? The Renaissance. The Renaissance followed the Black Plague because the people got it in their heads, wow, we're really screwing things up. So they went back to the past. Alla Romana, alla Antica, in the manner of the Romans and the ancients, to describe the quality of their work. Mm-hmm. So going back to AI, I want to go back to America. It was the land of opportunity, when the bigs didn't own everything, and there were mom and pop stores, and it was an America of soul and spirit and style and grace. So that would be my vision. And to me, the only way that's going to happen is when people go to a higher level. And to do that, you have to be in the best shape you can, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, or else you're just going to keep following the herd, and the herd's going down.
That is your ideal vision, but what you're forecasting is very far from it. You don't think that is going to happen, though?
Well, again, it's up to the people to make it happen. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men, said Samuel Adams. And you look at one of our other trends, and a number of them, there are very strong anti-establishment movements going on, and movements from new third parties to change the direction of what's going on. And if that happens, we can see a very good shift in this country.
All right, we are going to leave it on that positive and optimistic note. Gerald, thank you so much for joining us. A very enlightening, somewhat depressing, but nevertheless very informative conversation. Thank you as always, Gerald Celente. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Michelle, for having me on.
And thank you for watching Kitco News. I'm Michelle Makori. Be sure to keep it right here.